Greetings, beautiful. It's Jo again, and today I wanted to touch a little bit on body image, especially when it comes to extreme weight loss, self-perception, and what you see when you look in the mirror versus what you see when you look at yourself down. That's where I'm at. I see the weight loss when I look in the mirror. I see the weight loss in the way my clothes fit. I see the weight loss in the photos. But when I look down at myself, especially my belly and my tummy area, it feels as big as ever to me. And that is a little bit of a type of body dysmorphia. It's called phantom fat, and it can be pretty severe. It can be a full-on version of body dysmorphia if it's really sticking with you for a long time. They do recommend that if you don't see the reality of yourself after even a year after you've lost an extreme amount of weight, like with weight loss surgery or whatever you've done, that it might be time to look into therapy. I don't believe I'm at that kind of a point, but it's just something I see and notice and perceive about myself because, like I said, I see it in the photos now. We always see it on ourselves last anyway. Turning to the side, my arms look slimmer, although the bottoms are still grandma flappy, and that's, loose, and that's just what it is when you've been as big as I have for as long as I have. And I do see the thinner person coming out. I can feel my hip bones when I put my hands on my hips now, and I really couldn't before. These are all things I know it's really happening. But if I'm touching myself or just looking down, that belly feels like the belly it's always been, just a big belly. And that's going to take time. That's going to take time. Sometimes you just need to give yourself a minute. The plus size feelings may never go away for some people. Therapy may be what you need. There is a distortion in our own body images and what we see with ourselves sometimes, and that's okay. We have to work on ourselves. And losing weight isn't automatically going to make you be happy. I was not unhappy heavy. This is for health benefits. I'm at that point in my life and at my age where if I don't do something, it's gonna hit me bad. Right now, I'm not bad, and I wasn't losing it because I was already having severe health issues besides the crappy feet, the sucky knees, the borderline blood pressure, borderline cholesterol. Not actually bad, not that they wanted to medicate me, but just that, hey, you better watch out for that thing. But for me, 2 days from now is my mom's 2nd year death day anniversary, and she was not very old, and she had a lot of health issues. Diabetes was a big thing. My grandma also had diabetes. She struggled a lot with a lot of different cumulative health issues, and a lot of those things would have been improved by being able to lose some weight. And I am at that age at 46 where I have to acknowledge where I'm at right now, because if I don't, I'm going to be there in a few years, and I don't want to be there in a few years. But the phenomenon of seeing yourself literally as a previous version is called phantom fat. And it can happen to anyone who's undergone considerable transformations like losing weight or gaining muscle, according to a clinical psychologist, Sharon Chirban, a PhD of Amplify Wellness and Performance. Sorry, I had to read that. When the body has changed significantly, the mind can take years to catch up, much like what happens when losing a limb, is what she says. The person who has moved from obese to normal body weight may still have the internal responses that have been reinforced for years. There are people who talk about being self-conscious and like choosing where to sit, where they don't have to worry that somebody might not want to sit next to them because they're fat, even though they're not fat anymore. Because we all know that's a thing. You know, if you have a choice between sitting from somebody who's smaller and not as intrusive upon the seat next to them, and the seat next to you being big and more intrusive, they might not want to sit next to you, and they're sensibly, it's not unreasonable, but it does get in people's heads, and we have to think about that sometimes. And some people, even after losing a lot of weight, still think like that. They still have those self-conscious leanings. Self-perception is a big deal. Who you think you are isn't always who everybody else thinks you are. Definitely, I think we all struggle with who it. Sometimes, I mean, honestly, I didn't think I was as big as I am, or as big as I was. But I go back and I look at my 13-week picture and my week 0 picture from alternate day fasting being begun. And I would have to say my perception was that I was smaller than I was, because where I am now is where I was in my head, except for when I was doing things like bending over to pick something up in the floor and my pants are cutting into my belly and making me do the grandma grunt. Oh, I can do this. My knees were telling me I was big. My feet were telling me I was big. I've been big most of my life, pretty much from puberty on. I am rapidly approaching the point where I will be in my smallest adult size ever. The smallest I have ever been from somewhat adult age is being in late junior high age, maybe 7th grade-ish, and having a pair of jeans that were like a junior size 11 that were skin tight, but they are actually the smallest adult size jean I have ever worn. I went from kids' clothes to grandma clothes pretty much, and as old as I am, the fashion choices are a lot more now. But when I was in high school and junior high, you had 3 choices: dress like a grandma, dress like a dude, or learn how to sew. And I dressed like a grandma because I really couldn't sew much, and this is what it is. And I mean, I'm just prone towards it. And I grew up without a whole lot of money, which means lots of kinds of food that could be bought at the beginning of the month that had to last, so they're not perishable. There wasn't a whole lot of fresh veggies and fruits and things. It was beans and pasta and dry goods that we all know are not the healthiest. We know that now. We know that then, but poor people eat what poor people can eat. I have the problem that because I grew up so long eating that way, that food is normal to me and it tastes better to me, and it's hard to shift off of that. I try really hard that on my feast days I make rounded, healthy choices, but I don't want to feel deprived, so I still have pasta and beans and the things that I want to have, but I do have them in as much moderation as I can. But growing up eating like that, it can be really, really hard to break habits of a lifetime to make healthier choices. And let's face it, fresh veggies and fruits and fresher meats and everything like that, it's expensive. I'm a little cheap sometimes too. I'm like, oh, expensive. I could eat this spaghetti that I'd be happy with. I mean, I love spaghetti. I could eat that 3-4 times a week without a problem. I could literally eat it almost every night in the week and have been known to, because I like me some pasta. But your food needed to be able to last, and that's the food that I still like. And that was hard, especially when you got that thing in your head where you're 3 squares a day plus these snacks, and our bodies were not made to eat like we eat. And medieval people on farms in the 1900s, it was feast or famine. What's in season? What can we grow ourselves? There's not a store on every corner with all this food, processed food everywhere. I know that people worry about, what am I doing with the alternate day fasting? Is it healthy? That doesn't sound healthy. You're starving yourself. No, I'm really not. This isn't starvation. This is how historically we ate, and we don't anymore, and our bodies are paying the price for it. So all I have to say in summary for today is I want you to think about how you see yourself. I want you to look at the photos. I want you to look at the measurements. I want you to look in the mirror. I want you to look down at yourself, and I want you to acknowledge the progress you've made or the progress you still need to make, but try to look at reality. Look at that like it's another person and be judging them based on not who you are in your head. And if you still think you are 300 pounds when you are 120 pounds, then get a little bit of help. Go talk to somebody, because you shouldn't have to live that way. And I want you to have a beautiful, beautiful day and a lovely weekend. Greetings, beautiful. So, wobble, wobble. But definitely,